Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for our Sutta study. So we have Ayya Soma back with us, and we'll be taking a look at a sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya. So you can click the link in the live chat if you'd like to follow along, and if you have questions at any time, feel free to type them in. So welcome so far to Michael, Chittapala, Jens, Gita, Denise, and Kyle. So good to see everyone. And good morning as well to those of you who are just viewing right now. So at this time, I'll pass things over to Ayya Soma to lead us in this morning's Sutta study.
All right, thank you very much, Bhante Sumano, and thank you all for joining us this morning. So we can start by paying homage to our original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namassami. So this morning we will be reading through Anguttara Nikaya 752. You will, I believe you have the translation from Bhante Sujato on the link, but I will be reading from Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. But it's good so that you can see how the Dhamma can be translated in different ways, but never lose its meaning. And we will be doing it a little bit Bhante Sudhaso style, so we will be reading it together this morning and then discuss it step by step. So the sutta begins saying, on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Champa, on a bank of the Gagara lotus pond. Then a number of lay followers from Champa approached the Venerable Sariputta, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and said to him, Bhante Sariputta, it has been a long time since we heard a Dhamma talk from the Blessed One. It would be good, Bhante, if we could get to hear a Dhamma talk from him. In that case, friends, you should come on the Upasata day. Perhaps then you might get to hear a Dhamma talk from the Blessed One. So it's very lovely to see how Bhante Sariputta, out of compassion for the lay followers, makes sure that they find the right time to see the Buddha, so to hear the words directly from the Buddha, even though Sariputta is himself enlightened, so he could have easily shared the Dhamma. Still knows that it's an incredibly special occasion, opportunity to see the Blessed One in person. So throughout the suttas, whether it's Venerable Sariputta or any other enlightened bhikkhuni or bhikkhu, you see that as soon as people ask questions, if the Buddha is somewhere near, somewhere present, they invite the followers to, or they sometimes reprimand the followers, going, why didn't you ask that question to the Buddha? You had such a great opportunity to ask the question to the Buddha. So these days we don't have the flesh, the Buddha in flesh, but we have a lot of different monastics, senior monastics around. So whenever we have the opportunity to ask questions to senior monastics, we should always take that opportunity, never be shy. But whenever one sees Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, to constantly reflect, what can I ask to Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi? This is a great, incredible opportunity that might not be repeated, and so forth, to any kind of monastic. Venerable Rubina Kortin. What can I ask Venerable Rubina Kortin right now? But today you have Ayya Soma, so no Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi and no Venerable Rubina Kortin. And the sutta continues, yes, Bhante, those lay followers replied. Then, having risen from their seats, they paid homage to the Venerable Sariputta, circumambulated him, keeping their right sides towards him, and departed. Then on the Upasata day, these lay followers from Champa approached the Venerable Sariputta, paid homage to him, and stood to one side. Then the Venerable Sariputta, along with those lay followers, went to the Blessed One. They paid homage to the Blessed One, sat down to one side, and the Venerable Sariputta said to him, "Could it be the case, Bhante, that a gift given by someone here is not of great fruit and benefit? And could it be the case that a gift given by someone here is of great fruit and benefit?" Well, first of all, I want to highlight the fact that actually Venerable Sariputta once again asked the question. So the Buddha was not the opposite. These days we're really, really spoiled that we normally either actually open YouTube and there's a live stream, where we go to the temple when there's not a pandemic. And there's usually a monastic that will give a teaching. When the suttas, normally the case is that the Buddha actually says it over and over again, that he doesn't really just talk, but rather he's prompted by a question. And that question has to come out of interest from the person who's really trying to understand the Dhamma. And it's a very good thing, once again, to nourish. The Buddha encourages us over and over again to nurture that inquiring mind that wants to learn, that wants to go to the end of suffering. And in that way, we're also paying more attention to what is being said and treasuring it more. So in this particular case, we see that Venerable Sariputta asks if fundamentally, in other words, is giving always a good thing? So what are the results of giving? If I give, say, a block of cheese to Bhante Sudaso, and Bhante Sumano gives the same block of cheese to Bhante Sudaso, could this gift have different connotations? Could it be one could be fruitful and the other not fruitful? Or not out of necessity, if we know that Bhante Sudaso wants cheese or needs cheese, will it necessarily, just because the need is met, is that the same? Will it have the same sort of consequences? Which is a very interesting question, right? We normally don't really go about it that way. At least I have never really thought too much about the implications of giving, because I was raised in a very practical way. And so we see in this sutta, it's actually very, very broken down, because of course the Buddha of compassion, he makes sure that we understand the different nuances of giving. And first of all, he makes the statement, it could be the case, Sariputta, that a gift given by someone here is not of great fruit and benefit, and it could be the case that a gift given by someone here is of great fruit and benefit. And Venerable Sariputta says, Bhante, why is it that one gift is not of great fruit and benefit while the other is? So first of all, once again, surprise. There is something more to it than just the material gift, whether it's an object or so just, an action, whether we are giving the gift of time, whether we're giving the gift of shelter, whether we're giving the gift of listening, any type of gift that we're giving to others. And so the Buddha gives 7 examples. And the first one is, here, Sariputta, someone gives a gift with expectations, with a bound mind, looking for rewards. He gives a gift thinking, having passed away, I will make use of this. He gives that gift to an ascetic or a Brahmin, food and drink, clothing and vehicles, garlands, scents and unguents, bedding, dwellings, and lighting. What do you think, Sariputta? Might someone give such a gift? Yes, Bhante. So if you go to different monasteries, including this one, we run entirely on donations, and there are so many people that are extremely kind. We're blessed that they are giving all sorts of, maybe less than this list at this monastery. But in other monasteries, there's more than in this gift, right? so incredible generosity of the lay people supporting the Sangha. But the Buddha here highlights, aside from the, once again, the material gifts per se, the mind state of, not of course all the people who are donating, but of one particular individual who is donating. That is donating with the sort of idea that there is going to be something in return, that there's going to be a sort of transactional, perhaps not with the monastic per se. It's not that, if a lay person gives food and drink to Bhante Sumano, that necessarily Bhante Sumano will be able to give food and drink to to the person, right? But actually, the expectation, for example, in a future life, comes from right view, comes from the understanding that normally, if we do a good action, we're going to reap similar rewards in the future. So it's very common with a lot of born Buddhists who have an understanding of karma to pick specifically the things that they like to give to others with that intention, right? Understanding. And the Buddha says, in that case, Sariputta, he gives a gift with expectations, with a bound mind, looking for rewards. He gives a gift thinking, having passed away, I will make use of this. Having given such a gift with the breakup of the body, after that, he is reborn in companionship with the Devas, ruled by the 4 great kings. Having exhausted that karma, psychic potency, glory, and authority, he comes back and returns to this state of being. So surprise, right? I love this sutta because it has these highs and lows in the way that the Buddha is both somewhat saying that the gift is a little bit tainted, or rather than the gift, the mind of the person who is giving is a little bit tainted by self-interest, by craving. But still, this type of giving brings really good results. So he's quite clear with that. Giving is always a good idea, even if your mind is tainted, even if you're going about it out of greed. If you're like, I know that Bhante Sutta does not like, what is that you don't like? There's something that he doesn't like. Cilantro, yes, cilantro is a very good idea. So perhaps there's a taco with cilantro, and I'm like, this doesn't I don't like it, but I actually really like it. I would love to keep on having tacos with cilantro for the rest of my life. So I keep on giving him tacos with cilantro. Then I'm reborn in the heaven of tacos with cilantro. So that's great. I get what I want. But bad news is that it's temporary. So then I will get back to square one without any tacos with cilantro. So this is what the Buddha in this first case, invites us to reflect. I also really like the description that he highlights, with a bound mind. So not with a free mind, but with the bound mind. And it's also important, aside from, once again, the material gift, that there can be a lot of other sort of expectations that we have in our mind. It can be from being liked, simply just the desire of being liked. And if I'm going to give this to Bhante Sutta, so he's going to like me better than Bhante Sumano. So I'm going to keep on giving him the tacos without the cilantro. So he's going to like me because I know he likes tacos. Or perhaps, if I'm a lay person working at a job, perhaps I want to get a promotion. Or if perhaps I'm a monk and I live in a monastery, I'm like, oh, if I do this and this other thing, maybe I'm going to get a nicer kuti or a nicer room in the monastery. Or some type of privilege, some type of sort of sensual pleasure that is going to make my life more comfortable. And then in the second case, the Buddha says, but Sariputta, someone does not give a gift with expectations, with a bound mind, looking for rewards. He does not give a gift thinking, having passed away, I will make use of this. Rather, he gives a gift thinking, giving is good. So this is another reason why we can give. So for example, it's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. I would say pretty much every spiritual system or religion in the world that I'm aware of, except for Satanism possibly, is all on the sort of general agreement that giving, generosity is good, right? So that could be something that pushes us to make good actions. So if we're monastics, if we're in robes, or if we're lay people and practicing the Buddhist teachings, we have an aspiration to develop sila because we've heard, well, it's part of the path, I should be doing this. I guess it's a good thing to do, so I will do it. And then the Buddha gives another reason why we give. So he says he does not give a gift thinking giving is good, but rather he gives a gift thinking giving was practiced before by my father and forefathers. I should not abandon this ancient family custom. So a practice, for example, done by our ancestors, a family tradition, so we're paying respect to them. Or if we are monastics, perhaps we're not born Buddhist. We're like, well, I guess this is done in the Thai forest tradition. This is done in the Sri Lankan forest tradition. Also not the forest tradition, just the tradition. It's done in Chinese Mahayana. It's done in this. Well, I guess I have to do it. It's part of the tradition. Let me do these acts of giving. Another reason the Buddha says, he does not give a gift thinking giving was practiced before. I should not abandon this ancient family custom. It would be a shame to abandon it, right? But rather, he gives a gift thinking, I cook. These people do not cook. It isn't right that I who cook should not give to those who do not cook. This is very practical mindset. So, the monastics normally do not cook, at least in the Theravada tradition. So we see a need. That was very much me, actually, when I first met, for example, Bhante Sudaso, who was in New York City. I was like, well, doesn't cook, but I have to feed them. Or when I went to Santa Chitra, the forest monastery, actually, my mother was not at all Buddhist, but she also had this sense, they can't cook, they can't do that. Let's bring a lot of food. Let's do it. Let's fulfill this need. But also outside of monastic circles, we see that too. When are we giving normally food to people? When we see a beggar that looks like they are in need of food, right? There is a need that needs to be fulfilled. Very, very practical. And this can be a bit of a slippery slope in monastic life, for example, because a lot of the ways in which monastic life is structured can be very arbitrary. So one can be 50 years old ordained and then take dependence on someone who is 25, half their age. And we take dependence, which is a beautiful practice of nurturing wholesome qualities, but that also requires doing certain acts, certain can be cleaning the room, it can be washing someone's dishes. So someone who's 50 years old can think, well, the person who's 25, do you really need me to clean their room or to wash their bowl? It's very, very common that those thoughts appear in the mind, right? Like, well, they're really like, they actually have more strength than I do, so maybe it should be the other way around. How unjust is this training? What was the Buddha thinking? And so this is when we start approaching giving in that practical sense. It's still good, of course. As the Buddha mentioned earlier, we're going to have a deva rebirth because we're still doing something wholesome, but it's slightly tainted. And then the Buddha keeps going. He does not give a gift thinking, I cook to those who do not cook. But rather he gives a gift thinking, just as the seers of old, that is Attaka, Vamaka, Vamadeva, Vasamita, Yamatagi, Angirasa, Bharadvaja, Vasetta, Kassapa, and Bhagu, held those great sacrifices, so will I share a gift. So these are a series of Brahmins from the old Brahminical tradition that I'm not, disclaimer, terribly familiar with. Because I'm not terribly prone to studying other spiritual thoughts besides Buddhism. So my tendency of mind doesn't go towards that direction. But of course, this was a contemporary spiritual practice at the time of the Buddha. And actually, we can see it throughout the world over history of time. So basically, the practice of doing sacrifices, making sacrifices for gods or for spiritual practitioners. And the reason why sacrifice is used, that this is my understanding anyway, and if you have follow-up questions on this particular passage, I recommend asking questions during mock chat to Pati Sutasa, who's probably one. But yeah, once again, the term sacrifice that then is also used within Buddhist circles is because whenever we're giving something, we are sacrificing it. We're making an offering. We're not having it anymore. So we're practicing letting go fundamentally. And so since our past religious culture, since this has been happening in different parts of the world, wherever we belong, then us, inspired by this tradition, we keep this tradition going. And then the Buddha proceeds. He does not give a gift thinking, just as the seers of old held those great sacrifices, so I will share a gift, but rather he gives a gift thinking, when I am giving a gift, my mind becomes placid and elation and joy arise. This is me very often. Because it's true, giving feels good. We have a food distribution program here. It is so delightful to give boxes of fresh vegetables to people who need it. So great. Like when I was right before I took my vows, I ordained, I had all these bunch of things that were relatively precious. And I started giving them away to my friends and they were so happy. And I was having such a great time. Remember when I took my Chanel bag and I gave it to my friend Samantha? I had never enjoyed so much that Chanel bag until I gave it away. I had it for years and years. Well, admittedly, when I was at Buddhist Insights, I just had it in the closet for years and years. But before that, I had been wearing it. It was my favorite bag. I was very attached to it, which is why it was in the closet for years. And I remember, okay, I have to ordain. And Samantha was like, are you sure? Is that bag fake? Why do you want to give it away? I'm like, no, it's real. Like, you should keep it. I'm like, I don't think it will suit the outfit. And at the beginning, there was like, oh, my Chanel bag. Then I gave it and I was like, oh, I saw how happy she was to have this beautiful bag. And my mind was full of joy, delighting, because giving feels good. It's great. It's wonderful. So that's a wholesome, wholesome thing to do, something to pursue, yet still slightly tainted. And so the Buddha then, as a last description, says, he does not give a gift thinking, when I am giving a gift, my mind becomes placid and elation and joy arise. But rather, he gives a gift thinking it's an ornament of the mind, an accessory of the mind. When I first read these verses, I was about to cry, actually, in January. I had not read this sutta, or at least if I had in the past, it didn't make an impression on my mind, but it really made an impression in my mind in January when I read it, and I was about to cry. And I love also the words that Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi picked, an ornament of mind. So when we start thinking, what are the ornaments? Why do we wear what we wear? Why did I have that Chanel bag? What did it represent to me when I was wearing, when I was dressing up, and having my Chanel bag? Something that was making me feel good, something that was making me feel beautiful. Anything that we put on, whether it's makeup, whether it's hat, whether it's clothing, any type of ornament, we're very obsessed actually physically. Whenever we think about ornaments, it's something physical, or either on our body or in our house, and something that belongs to us. But what about our mental mind states? Very rarely we think of it, oh, generosity is that ornament. Wow, that's incredible, beautiful thing that I should be proud of. That really makes me feel good. The most beautiful accessory doesn't even compare the Chanel bag. Doesn't even compare this beautiful stone building that we happen to live here at the monastery. Pales in comparison with a beautiful mind of generosity. And the Buddha says he gives that gift to an ascetic or a Brahmin, food and drink, clothing and vehicles, garlands, scents and unguents, bedding, dwellings and lighting. What do you think, Sariputta? Might someone give such a gift? Yes, Bhante. In that case, Sariputta, he does not give a gift with expectations, with a bound mind, looking for rewards. He does not give a gift thinking, having passed away, I will make use of this. He does not give a gift thinking, giving is good. He does not give a gift thinking, giving was practiced before by my father and forefathers. I should not abandon this ancient family custom. He does not give a gift thinking, I cook. These people do not cook. It isn't right that I who cook should not give to those who do not cook. He does not give a gift thinking, just as the seers of old held those great sacrifices, so I will share a gift. He does not give a gift thinking, when I am giving a gift, my mind becomes placid and elation and joy arise. But rather he gives a gift thinking it's an ornament of the mind, an accessory of the mind. Having given such a gift with the breakup of the body after death, he's reborn in companionship with the devas of Brahma's company. So in a superior deva realm, then the previous case scenarios that I still want to highlight that are actually still praiseworthy, they're still wholesome, they're still incredible. And then the Buddha says, having exhausted that kama, psychic potency, glory, and authority, he does not come back and return to this state of being. And this is the most important part. This is what makes it even more fruitful, not necessarily going to a higher plane of existence within heavenly realms, but the fact that we're not starting then all over again, but rather this incredible ornament of mind that propels us in the state of non-returning, the state of awakening, of non-returner, of anagami, which basically means that all the 5 lower fetters are eliminated. It's another reason why I started crying. Because we tend to get so focused on all the different attainments in meditation, overlooking this incredible central piece that virtue plays in all of this, and how it's not separate from the path. And to talk about sila, samadhi, panya, there shouldn't be any spaces. There should be sila, samadhi, panya, like those really long Pali compounds. Then maybe we would get it better, rather than thinking, okay, now I have to just practice samadhi. Now I just have to practice panya, and then if I have time, I practice sila. But the power of sila, one of the ways through which the Buddha talks about rebirth, a practice that leads to rebirth in the Brahma world, is the development of the 4 jhanas, but also he talks about it in terms of the development of the 4 Brahma viharas. Those are incredible mind states that Bhante spoke briefly last night, that are accessible to us on a daily basis by reflecting on what are we doing in everyday life. And so as I read this sutta, it was incredible, because we were doing the winter retreat for 2 months, that we had all these incredible lay people supporting the Sangha and doing all beautiful gestures of support on a regular basis. And my practice was always to actually do that. Like whenever they were doing something kind, I was like, oh, what a beautiful ornament of mine. And I was rejoicing. So I was practicing mudita. And really having an insight on how precious this Dhamma and discipline that the Buddha has given us, whenever we practice correctly, whenever we practice as it's been laid out, without being too creative, without having that conceit that we think we know better, that things should be in a different way. How when we remove ourselves from the way, we make room for beautiful ornaments of mind to generate in ourselves and others. So it's not that I was like, oh, now I'm practicing mudita, but mudita would come naturally, because why would it not? Why would I not rejoice in someone's incredible qualities of mind? So shifting from, and I can be a very superficial person based on from my past conditions in this life. I used to work in fashion, so there are certain aspects, physical qualities, that really make still an impact on my mind. A lot of times I'm like, oh, look at that person, so good looking. Oh, they are dressed, they're so cool. And now it's been shifting to, wow, what an incredible generosity, what an incredible mind state, what incredible equanimity. That those are the beautiful ornaments that my mind is gravitating towards. And the sutta ends with this: Sariputta, is the reason why a gift by someone here is not of great fruit and benefit. And this is the reason why a gift given by someone here is of great fruit and benefit. And once again, we see the great fruit and benefit. A lot of times we get so obsessed with, karma, good karma, being equating to material wealth of some sort, whether it's in this lifetime, future lifetimes, in the past, whatever it is. But fundamentally, good karma, my understanding, is whatever brings you in line with Dhamma, whatever brings you on the trajectory of awakening, of Nibbana. Because in all the other cases, we're still getting really incredible good results, but they're all impermanent. But whenever we fully understand, we look closely at our actions and we cultivate sila with the support of wisdom, with the support of concentration, really understanding what we're doing, then we're getting close to liberation. And that is of great fruit and benefit. Doesn't matter if one has a robes, it doesn't matter if one is a layperson. In whatever state we are, the goal is always the same. The form should just be supportive, it's a means to an end. But we should never lose track of the end itself. So I think that's all I have to share this morning. I hope you enjoyed this sutta as much as I did. It really delights my mind. It's one of my favorite suttas. I know that we're not credible anymore because we also every sutta study, but it's true. So you're welcome to ask any questions or share any thoughts.
Thank you, Ayya Soma. And there are a couple of questions, comments so far. So Denise says, in Majjhima Nikaya 142, it says, when an unethical and untrusting person gives an improper gift to ethical persons, not trusting in the ample fruit of deeds, that offering is purified by the receivers. Can you explain?
My understanding of that, actually, it's interesting. We were talking about it just a few days ago. So there is someone who gives, someone who receives, and there is the gift. So in order to practice generosity, there always need to be these three factors in the mix, right? We can't, if I want to give this cup to someone, but there is no one who's going to receive it, I can't be generous. I can't practice generosity. It's actually very evident when we were doing the food program. At a certain point, we had extra boxes. I had to work really hard in order to practice generosity last year. I was like, well, if I leave them rotting there, I'm not practicing generosity. I'm practicing wastefulness. Better make that happen. So it's fundamentally within this this exchange. Then there are different mind states, different minds interacting, and what the Buddha says is that either, because we can't control all of it, what really matters, what fundamentally karma is intention. So if I have a pure mind and I want to give this cup to someone, and that person is very immoral, perhaps I think that, since they're a monk, they are a very holy person. And so I go and I give them this, but in reality, I don't know that actually they're incredibly immoral and they've been doing lots of terrible things. But my intention is to give this, to make an incredible, wholesome offering. Hence, the gift is purified by my intentions. So I'm still my understanding of that, I still reaping the good karma of making a good action. If I know that the monk though is very unwholesome, does terrible things, and I still perhaps I want to, I get to it in a way that I am, not particularly ethical myself, and I'm like, well, I heard that giving is good, and maybe if I give a few things, then I boost my karma, good karma points. Let me give it anyway. Well, then it's not a particularly fruitful gift. And on the receiving end, it's the same thing. So, one of the, being a monastic, I've been constantly asking myself, what is the purpose of these precepts? Sometimes it's very difficult to practice the precepts. Not necessarily, when I was a lay person, perhaps I could have had the view that, these monks, they don't really need to do much. They just sit there and people like bring them offerings, etc., etc. Well, sometimes actually it would be so much easier to go in the kitchen, open the fridge, and make what I want to eat, or make what my body feels like it needs to eat, what kind of nutrition it needs, go to the store and purchase this and that, be very efficient, so to speak, have a more sort of efficient way of running this monastery. And then I realized actually the real purpose of all these trainings, it's not, there's of course an element of that we're practicing renunciation, but fundamentally the system that the Buddha designed for monastics to be dependent on lay people is out of compassion. And in the suttas, it's there over and over again. The reason why I never met Catholic monastics in Italy was because they never needed a lay person to support them. Hence, I never knew what Catholic monasticism was, what they were practicing, anything about it. The only thing that I had accessible was the church that had a different flavor of Christianity altogether than the different monastic groups, the way they were practicing. So one of the biggest reasons is that out of compassion we take these vows that actually make our life very uncomfortable, to be quite frank. And out of compassion we allow people to make merit, to support us, not because we need it. I'm fairly young. I can do, my body still allows me to do a lot of different things. But this woman is 10 years younger than me. He's very strong. He can do lots of different things. So that's not the purpose. That's not why he's in robes, right? So our intention has to always be how to create the right conditions to allow people to make merit, to create these ornaments of mind, to beautify the world, beautify themselves and the world. So a lot of the times I'm actually like working in terms of what do we actually need? I don't know. Sometimes here at the monastery, we're like, what is it? What do we need? How can we update the wish list, for example, with things that are actually useful? Because it's so much easier sometimes to actually not have anything at all. Be in a cave. Oh, great, you don't have to worry about anything, anyone. I'm not kidding here. This is real life experience. But looking for that, not for, do we actually really need I don't know, toilet paper. We could be even more eco-friendly and just use water. but rather, what is the intention there? So if our intention is good, our intention is pure, our intention is noble, even if the person giving us a gift with a bad intention, perhaps a poisoned alms, the gift is purified. So we are also making good karma as monastics whenever we allow people to practice generosity. We're making good karma in that way. So we are purifying the gift in a way that it is still something fruitful, still something that brings wholesomeness in the world. So I hope that made sense.
And then Michael says, no matter the motivation, I notice every giver goes to a higher plane, some higher than others. Ornament of the mind. Does that mean not real, a delusion, not mine?
No. That's possibly the realest thing that we can actually have when we get it into the sort of degrees of real. No, an ornament of mind is, once again, because we get so fixated on that ornaments are just superficial things, material things. As I was saying, we're so concerned about how we go about in the world in terms of our clothing, in terms of our makeup, in terms of our hair, in terms of our status. Why do you think the majority, actually, if you think Louis Vuitton, Dolce & Gabbana, all those big brands, I think 90%, it's like a ridiculous percentage of their sales, is actually all the logo stuff, like the big giant, the D and G, the big LV, Louis Vuitton. So everyone, like from miles apart, can see that you spent so much money on this D&G, Chanel, and you name it. Can have big earrings that are this big loop that has a Chanel sign. And that's the biggest amount of sales. The expensive silk, really nicely crafted garment, 3 people buy it because 3 people know that it's actually Chanel and Louis Vuitton. The majority of people are concerned with communicating to others how much they are worth. And that's normally a material worth. Oh, I can afford all this expensive stuff. Oh, great. So we're very much concerned to a degree or the other, even if we have the conceit of superiority that, oh, I don't do those big brands. Yes, no, I'm much better than that. Are you sure you are not concerned of how people perceive you in the world? And fundamentally, our concern is always outwardly. We never think, oh, it's beautiful to have a generous mind. It's beautiful to have a kind mind. It's beautiful to have a mindful mind. Right? Kind of take it for granted if we even do. So my take is that the Buddha here is encouraging us to see it as the foremost ornament that is also the most visible, actually, to others. When you start seeing also how you relate, not how you relate to others, but how you relate to others, who do you want to have around? Well, personally, for example, I wanted to have around a lot of monastics. Why? Because they have developed a lot of, or they're in the process of developing a lot of incredibly wholesome mind states, which the majority of people do not seem to care that much. Yeah. I used to be a journalist. I interviewed most successful people, quote unquote, whatever that means in the world, whether it was businessmen all the way to socialites, all the way to, you name it, artists, incredible mind. It was nothing in comparison to the monastics I've had the privilege to meet in 5 years of Buddhist insights. So I was like, this is who I want to surround myself with. These are the incredible ornaments that I want to be surrounded with. And I would like to develop that too. I remember when I met Venerable Tikva Pai, who is from the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition. And I remember thinking, I don't know about if enlightenment is possible, but I think I can become like Tikva Pai. That's good enough for me. I'll take that. Sign me up for that. Because he has incredible ornaments of mind that they shine through. Wow, he's so incredible. I don't think Pai, beautiful practitioner. Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, some of the best I've ever encountered. And I was like, yeah, I want to be like that. It's difficult. It's difficult to become Tikva Pai, alone enlightened, but it's doable and definitely much more pleasant, they say, than 5 years ago. So I don't have a Chanel bag anymore, but I have less stains in the ornaments of mind. So yeah, it's the opposite of delusion. We're cultivating wisdom because we're understanding what is really important to cultivate.
And Sarah says, Buddhism taught me the joy of giving. In the past, I worried that what I gave would be wrong or not enough. Now I've learned to bake sourdough, and I love to give it to people. It's a simple joy.
Sadhu. Yeah, once again, all the ways through which we give, me too. I mean, I love giving. The first time I went to, that's also why probably I love the Theravada tradition so much, because it's very good fit to my natural culture. Like in Italy, we love to give food to people. Even my mom, who is basically atheist and anti-Buddhist, loves to feed monks. When Bhakti Sudaso came in Italy, she was force feeding him while telling him that religion was stupid. So there's, a natural gravitation towards giving that feels good. But what we want to do is not settle. Always go further. Always go further. And that's the shift between saying this is good, this is wholesome, makes me feel good, to this is something worth developing, that is incredible. It's leading to freedom from suffering, and it's worth treasuring in myself and others. So you also start thinking, how can I create conditions for others to also practice this way? You see this very much in Asian Buddhist culture, how people, when they donate, they're not all just concerned about themselves. And they're like, oh, this is great. They at least share merit with at least their relatives at a minimum. And most of the time, they're actually encouraging others to make merit and rejoicing. It's an incredible fest. It's not like we've been running as converts Buddhist insights for so long. And for many years, we would have our retreats, and then at the end there was, or our class, and at the end there was this Dana talk, and whoever was giving the Dana talk was having such a bad time, myself included. It's like, oh my God, now there's the time of the Dana talk, so embarrassing. So we started telling people, well, this is free, but at the same time, there are these costs, and I'm sorry I have to say this. If you want, there is a donation box there, but if you don't want, don't do it. I am sorry, I'm even mentioning the donation box. What a shame. When is it over? Oh my God, I'm sorry. Okay, but actually it's free. No, I said it's free. Bye, bye, bye. Have I ever met someone born Buddhist do that? No, they're like, yes, and now it's the time to practice generosity. Wonderful. And it's not at the end of a class or at the end of a retreat. It's always a great time to practice generosity, whether it's giving money, whether it's giving food, whether it's not something to be embarrassed about. And that's because actually the culture is entrenched with Dhamma. This is what I've understood. The Buddha says over and over again to monastics again, do not be afraid of merit. Do not be afraid of merit. Understanding the consequences, a higher rebirth, for example, in a higher realm, is incredibly fruitful. It's positive. It's good. We shouldn't be afraid of that. Finally, we're going to get a break from this horrible state of existence. Yes, that's great. That's wonderful. But we can also go further. So that is what it's very important. And all of this should be something that we treasure, both in ourselves, us giving, both our family members, our friends, and everyone else. So it's creating opportunities for everyone to beautify the world. This is what we're talking about. If everybody were generous, if everybody were giving, what a beautiful world. What an incredible world. And Italy used to be apparently a much more beautiful country several years ago, when there were less logos floating around, when people were less concerned, with flashing all their whatever DNG, but more actually practicing generosity and more concerned about these beautiful things. Sometimes we just miss the point. That's all I'm saying.
And Michael says, yes, forgive my simple-mindedness. I'll be rereading and re-listening, trying to understand this. And then Michael said, can you not make a meal for yourself ever?
Well, the bhikkhunis have different rules. So yeah, we can, technically. I mean, definitely the bhikkhunis can. The bhikkhus, depending on their interpretation of different bhikkhus' interpretation. So I'm not a bhikkhu, so I won't talk about that. But in the Bhikkhuni Vinaya, as far as I'm aware of, yes, we can. We have the allowance to cook. Well, it was out of compassion, I think, by the Buddha, simply because people who have certain bumps on their bodies historically have not been as supported as others. So sometimes it can be a little bit more challenging to obtain alms. So you see a lot of bhikkhuni monasteries, for example, in Sri Lanka, have been suffering during this pandemic, where they weren't as supported as the bhikkhu monasteries. So there were a lot of fundraisers to make sure that the monastics had food. And can't connect the dots.
And Yen says, what about giving gifts that might not be healthy? For example, a person once asked for a cigarette. As I walked into the store, he appeared to be homeless, and I bought him a pack of cigarettes. I had good intentions, but I wonder about giving an unhealthy gift.
Well, so I would say that's why we're talking about the compound Sila Samadhi Panya, that we don't want to just be, now I'm practicing Sila, now I'm practicing Panya, now I'm practicing Samadhi, like they were three different things. We need to cultivate wisdom. And I really like this Zen story of someone coming to the Zen monk and asking, can you give me a teaching of a lifetime? And the Zen monk replies, an appropriate response. And in essence, that's what we're trying to cultivate in every time, in every moment. What is the appropriate response given the specifics that are in front of me? So if a heroin addict asks you for heroin, and it has happened to me in the past, not some just random heroin addict, like someone I knew, the appropriate response was not to give them heroin, but to help them and do something else. Help them overcome their craving. So that's your practice in understanding that you can give, but you should give something that is beneficial. You should always try to give something that is beneficial, rather than just give for the sake of giving. Because otherwise then it becomes a karma point. You approach giving in that way, and you're not really caring for others. You're not practicing thoughtfulness. You're not practicing caring. You're just going, okay, well, I'm giving this and I'm giving that and whatever, and getting these bunch of karma points. But if you have extra air conditioning and you bring it to Alaska, I don't know, it's called a country, right? It's called the state, I think. I've never been to Alaska. Siberia, definitely know Siberia is called. I mean, is it very fruitful? Will they need them? I don't know. It's kind of like bringing a heater to Jamaica that people are like, oh, thanks, but no thanks. So, you can keep it. So it becomes very, very selfish as an act. But instead, we want to cultivate as many good ornaments as possible. So thoughtfulness, caring, always ask yourself, could this person need something? And maybe they're asking for a cigarette, but they're actually hungry. So they are asking out of craving for a cigarette because it feels good. I'm a former smoker, I remember. Sometimes I would rather, when I didn't have enough money, I would buy cigarettes rather than food. But what I needed was actually food. So someone who's outside is a little bit more sober on the situation can actually make the appropriate response and help the person in question.
And the last question on YouTube is, do American monasteries rely on a few big patrons for food, like many big monasteries around the world?
Not us. I always heard of the existence of these like 4 donors, or even sometimes 1 donor. We can put it on the wish list, 1 donor to Cloud Monastery. But no, we've always had many different people contributing what they could, and that's how we're alive. Here actually in West Orange, whenever you go on alms round, it's even people who are completely unrelated to Buddhism. They don't know, but they see where they're accepting food, and they're happy to offer food. Sometimes they'll ask us if certain gifts are appropriate, if we can, or how to give, and they all rejoice in this beautiful system of generosity. So they rejoice in being generous, we rejoice in their generosity, and it's actually very beautiful and fruitful. And I would say that this is the case actually for the majority of Buddhist monasteries, even the ones that perhaps have any ties with royalty. If you go to Thailand, you will see the entire spectrum of society going to the temple and contributing what they can. One will contribute, if they don't have anything, they will contribute, just a little spoon of salt, something on the table.
And I think Daniela has another question about stealing, but maybe that would be better for Monk Chat
Yes.
Tomorrow evening, 7:30 p.m. Anything Facebook?
All right. So I think that's all for this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So we'll be meeting again with Bhante Sutta this evening at 7:30. And we can end with 3 sadhus.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.